How's it going, guys? I got another 1980s Radio Shack receiver to repair and add to my little collection. It is a realistic STA-2500. This model would have been like 1985, new for 85 and 86. This machine sells for less than what the 2600 is, and really it's not that much different of a machine. And inside it probably has the same amplifier and the same wattage capability. It has the same digital tuner setup. The only thing different is I'm noticing is that there's more mechanical buttons. You know, rather than like see here, there's momentary like electronic buttons up here. The 2600 has more buttons like this instead of being mechanical. But and it has two turntable inputs, and 2600 just has one. This machine's not really good enough of shape of like collector type thing, which I do like having, you know, collector ones, but at the same time I like having ones to play with. You know, like it's no fun collecting if you don't have one that you could use. And you know, I have like a 2600 that I play out at the garage, and you know, it's fun to have it to play with, even though it's all hacked up inside, you know, with repairs over the years. But you know, it's no fun collecting if you can't play with it. You know, so the problem with this one is that when you turn it on, the fluorescent display doesn't work. And problems with fluorescent displays, well, they could just time out and go bad. They're probably good for 50 to 100,000 hours. I don't know. You know, somebody turns this on and leaves it turned on 24 hours a day, year in and year out. You know, eventually it's going to burn out. It's like a fluorescent bulb. Other things that go bad is there's capacitors on that supplies it. Oftentimes those will go bad. Basically, there's high voltage, and a lot of times they use capacitors and stuff on the power supply for it. So that could be bad, or it could be just a power supply issue to it. I don't know, but I got this off of eBay. I wouldn't have bought it if I didn't have this. This is an extra fluorescent display. This came out of a 2280 model, but I'm pretty sure that is exactly, just by a front appearance, is the same display. So I'm kind of looking at, no matter what, I should be able to get the thing working. You know, if I didn't have this, I don't think I would have went for the gamble of it. But even at that, it does work. It would work as an amplifier, even though those don't work. But you know, it'd be no fun in it if that stuff didn't work. It'd be hard to tune into a radio station. But let's open it up. Alright, got the top off, and I can tell you, this thing is very, very similar to the 2600, other than the you know, the interface right here for the functions. Pretty much the same unit. Power supply looks the same, and this thing does not look like it's ever been repaired. I'm not finding anything like there's no caps changed, or everything looks original. Of course, when we're done, it won't be because it's broke. But the display board, I was kind of looking at just a quick fix, drop it or display board, you know, see if it worked. But it's different. It's different but the same. And if you lay them beside each other, you can see just, you know, the layout of the board isn't the same. I think the display is the same display. So worst case scenario, I mean, you can desolder all these pins, which would suck. And you know, it has all the same plugs, But this one here has like wires coming off, like 3 wires. And the other one, unless they're dotted underneath, hidden somewhere, I'm not seeing them as of yet. So I don't know, you know, as far as just dropping that in, I don't think. But I am seeing some things like this cap right here is bulging. You know, so I'm kind of looking at trying to do some cap changes on the power supply, and then there is a rather large cap on this display. So, you know, change that out, and you know, see if we get anything, and then you know, probably break out a voltmeter, try to figure out what what power, where the power comes off goes over to here. See what I got for power. I could probably use one of the 2600s as a reference, that works, or maybe even the schematic for the 2600. One thing to note about these machines is the schematic that was for it, you almost have to have the one that came with the machine. Online you can get a schematic for the 2600 from a website for free, but one of the things I've noticed with working on these is that they're not all the same. Even though you'll have the model number on the front, they're different. There's differences in them, and you can just look in it and see, just like between this and this, there's very well possible there's a model out there that says 2500 on it that could have this board. I own 3 2600s, and I see differences in all 3 of them, and it almost seems like there's more than one manufacturer that was making these, just by simple things like the hardware is different. Just a little difference to them, enough to. And then the boards, the color of the boards, there's like a lighter brown and a darker brown and more of a green looking brown in some. Of course you have to account for the discoloration of the heat from over time, but you get what I'm saying. I think there was at least 2 different manufacturers making these. But well, we'll see what we get next. Out of like the 7 units that I have of different models, I've never seen a date code on the bottom. November 1984. Alright, so here's what this thing looks like from the bottom. And one thing I like to mention about these machines is that they was behind the times versus like what everybody else was producing. Than what, these behind the times. Like, there is no surface mount components whatsoever in these machines. Even the 2600. I don't know about 2700, which was like the last likeness model of these, whoever the third party is that made them. There's all kinds of rumors of who the third parties were, but I actually think that there was several. But anyways, the thing is, cool about these things is that they are repairable because everything is through hole. They're pieces that you can hold in your hand, you know what I mean, not on the tip of your finger. So it's easy to test and easy to, it's easy to handle and work on and solder. But alright, we'll get those caps in there, and kind of looking at like, yeah, I'm just gonna, like, without even testing anything, drop some new caps in here. But the fact of the matter is it probably needs them anyways, so it's not like I'm doing something for no good reason. So there could be other power supply issues, but changing these caps is just something that needs done anyway, and then we'll see what we get. Alright guys, I replaced all of the power supply caps, every one of them. These caps are much smaller than the originals, volt for volt, and capacity versus capacity. You can kind of see here, the difference. But it didn't do anything for it. It needed caps. I mean, This cap is bulging, not only top but sides and out the bottom. It was glued to the board, so maybe it might have been helping keeping it from leaking, but it was definitely junk. This one here was the most notable one. I also replaced whatever power supply stuff was, capacitors that was on this board. It was like 3. And I started noticing right away I had some voltage issues on the display itself. There's like half of what they're supposed to be. And I battled for an entire afternoon tracking down, you know, if it was the transformer windings or whatever. And I just had myself stuck in a rut, and that I wouldn't let myself out of, put it that way. Broke out the schematic. The schematic for the 2600 does help a lot on the 2500. So if you own a 2500, you get a 2500 or a 2600 schematic. It is useful, but one of the things bad about them is they're not very good about putting voltages and stuff on them. I mean, they're there in some places, but it doesn't say anything about the voltages that's supposed to come off of this. It's very much helpful actually opening up a 2600 and getting some voltage readings off of it. So anyways, there's this header that comes off of this for a power supply. It goes over to the power supply board. And the pinout on it, this is the pinout of the 2600. There's actually voltage on here. It's like 6 volts and 6 volts on these two, but this just depends on how you go about checking it. But anyway, today I go back and I'm looking at it and I'm like, well, wait a minute, what about this? You know, I was stuck on these two. And but this one right here didn't read, you know, it oscillated all over the place, you know, real low voltage, while this one up here was at 26 on the 2600 machine. And I don't know why I didn't look into it or whatever, but today, you know, I look at this sheet and I'm like, well, wait a minute here. So anyway, started tracking down what pin 3 is, and it runs off and ends up going over to a transistor. I started texting the voltages on the transistor, and there was nothing coming off of it. And it ends up being this little guy. I'm going to have to order one, but I do have the machine working and it will run for a while, and the transistor gets smoking hot. Another thing is the pinout on it is different, so I had to reverse the legs of 2 of the legs to make it work. So right now it's just a kludge, but the display works. And it's actually getting a little under voltage, a few volts, so it's not getting too much. There's actually also, I paralleled 2 of them transistors to make this work, because it can't dissipate enough amperage. So it can't have enough amperage. Enough amperage can't get through it, so it starts overheating. If you just have one in there, it goes up in smoke in like 2 or 3 minutes. Where this one right here, open like it is, the case open, where this room is like 68 degrees, 69. It'd probably run indefinitely like that, but as soon as you put a cover on it and increase the room temperature by 10 degrees, it'd burn out. Nah, I just don't like a kludge. I can get on eBay and just buy those little transistors. But yeah, it's up and running. It's awesome. Alright, I got the stereo receiver hooked up to some speakers in my computer. And here's the parts that was replaced. There's that little transistor. Just power supply caps. This machine could probably use a complete recap, but like right now the tuner doesn't work very well. It's possible he'd get better with use, like everyday use. The tuner could get better. Basically the caps will kind of reform. The capacitors on the power supply and things like that is generally the first ones to go because of all the heat, and then but the rest of them dry out over time as well. Just ambient temperature and time. I'm gonna play a couple little short clips of stuff, music that you get in trouble for playing, but it seems like if you keep it to around 5 seconds, you know, you can get away with it. This machine's from California, so almost every pot in it needed some deoxit. So that's just the way it is when you get stuff from there. Alright, so this is just for a demonstration. The audio that you hear, you know, is of course picked up by this camera, and then it's, you know, turned into different files and uploaded, and YouTube usually turns my file type into a different file type, and then it's the speakers that you have playing, whether, you know, what kind of quality they are, you know. So this is just for demonstration. Just gonna get rid of the glare. There we go. Alright, so here we go. Alright, so that pretty much concludes the repair on this thing as far as taking video on it. I gotta order that transistor. The two that's paralleled in there right now has been out here running for about 2 hours, so, but I do need to order those, and I will. But as far as cleaning this thing up, I think it'll clean up pretty decent. The sides are shot with, you know, it needs veneered. Thought about buying some veneer and see if I can't redo stuff like that, but probably do that on some other video. And I also like to mention, if you heard like some kind of distortion on this video, it was probably oversaturating my microphone on my camera. This thing was far from distorting. But alright, I'll catch you guys later.